We begin our search for the world of the last nomads in the Sahara. Over 3 million square miles of desert. We are heading for the heart of this vast area that was once the homeland of the Tuareg, the legendary people of the Vale. A sudden encounter with a desert viper. An example of the dangers of this hostile environment. Sand dunes, some over 1,000 feet high. For millions of years, they have been shifting in the wind 1 inch at a time. The wind is the nomad's constant companion. To coexist with this relentless element, the man of the Sahara has to veil his face with the litham. The veil is not to hide the nomad's features, but to protect his lungs from the windswept sand. Camels are the true measure of a nomad's wealth. When grazing, the beasts are hobbled to prevent them wandering off. Camels, like men, have to protect themselves from the desert wind. Their head is high enough off the ground to avoid the worst of the wind-blown sand. In years gone by, the Tuareg were noble warriors, and the desert herdsmen were their servants. Today, in order to survive in the immensity of their desert homeland, they must tend their own livestock. We are traveling in search of evidence with which to document the existence of the last true nomads. A breed of man that is fast becoming extinct as we prepare to cross the threshold of the 21st century. Our quest has taken us over endless miles of desert trails. And thousands more lie ahead. Trails like this were established long ago by nomad caravans. Many used to carry salt, from remote desert rock salt mines to the oases. We came across this surviving example of the ancient caravans making its way with hundreds of camels from Tenerife to Agadez, led by nomad caravaneers, some of the few that still exist. But where are all the others? What is the goal of the rest of the nomads that travel the Sahara today? In this empty world of mirages and often desperation, it was not only trade that brought the nomads into contact with civilization, but also their raids on the rich desert oases. We continue our search, but by now there is no doubt the nomad in his marauder trader identity is no more than a distant memory. Of course, some traits will never be lost. Our guide is a nomad, and there is no chance he will lose his way, even though the route he chooses across the unmarked sand often seems to be a confused zigzag. Nomad guides, nomad herdsmen. We met this Tuareg as he was taking his meager herd to new pastures. Nomads are sought after by oil companies as guides for survey teams and drilling crews. And the last Tuareg also offer invaluable assistance to archaeologists and paleontologists searching for traces of early human settlements. And of course, we could not have done without our nomad guides on our photographic expedition. After all, the nomad himself was our subject. We pitched camp on a site indicated by our guide, and it was here that we encountered the famous Ghibli, the harsh desert wind. The Tuaregs say they can feel the wind coming even before the first gust rises. It will come from there, our guide told us as he showed where to pitch the tents. His innate knowledge told him the storm would follow a set path through the strikingly beautiful desert valleys that offer no shelter. Suddenly, the lonely silence is broken. That was nothing, our guide told us after the gale subsided. We just got a taste of the Ghibli. It made life difficult for a while, but that was all. If only a very small number of Saharan nomads still adhere to their traditional lifestyle, where are all the others? Many, as we said, have found work in areas where the desert is being developed. Prospecting and research camps, drilling rigs, pipelines. The bowels of the Sahara are an important source of oil and natural gas. Saharan natural gas is being piped into the heart of Europe. The project is so huge, it requires the combined efforts of construction companies from Algeria, Tunisia, and Italy. The pipeline threads its way across the desert, passes under the Mediterranean Sea, and every day delivers to Europe millions of cubic feet of natural gas. Demand grows constantly, and the pipeline is now being doubled. Construction sites are dotted along hundreds of desert miles and offer thousands of jobs. There is work not only for skilled technicians, but also for local manual labor. Local labor in the desert can only mean nomad labor. In fact, the survival instinct has forced many nomads to accept steady jobs, even though they are at the bottom of the work scale, a humiliatingly subordinate status for the noble Tuareg. But the money is good. The job is well paid because the nomad's resistance to the desert heat is invaluable. The temperature in the Sahara often rises above 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade. And only the nomad can work in such conditions. And so the no longer wandering nomad earns a living in his barren, torrid homeland alongside machinery that are jewels of modern technology. When work on the site is finished, the huge excavations will be filled in and the desert restored to its former state. After months and months of continuous work, a nomad will have saved enough to turn his back forever on his traditional way of life. His tent will be replaced by a nondescript house in an unattractive town. And of course, his means of transportation will no longer be the camel. The face of the desert has been changing for over 30 years. But the nomad is lucky to have a character that allows him to adapt easily to change. The transformation underway at the present time, although enormous, is not the first, and it will not be the last. The first significant changes took place here between 5,000 and 7,000 years before Christ. In that period, the Sahara changed from green savanna to a desert wasteland. Slowly, the people living here adapted to the advancing sand, learning to travel across the scorching desert that had once been pastureland. Over 3 million square miles of fertile country had become a vast, inhospitable expanse of dunes, rocks, and dust. All that remains now of the desert's former fertility are these cave paintings that portray a pastoral society in perfect harmony with a flourishing natural environment of rich pastures stretching as far as the eye could see. Relics of the past, bones bleached by the sun and polished by the wind. Yes, from a green paradise to an ocean of rocks and sand. Perhaps the greatest metamorphosis that has taken place since man has walked the earth. And yet, man's ability to adapt to change did not fail him. Why, therefore, should we fear that the Tuareg will not learn to live with the changes taking place in his world today? Relentless technological changes. Here, we are in another region of Africa where the nomad's life has not changed for centuries and is now being endangered. The same process that created the Sahara is continuing here. The fertile savanna of eastern equatorial Africa is being slowly invaded by the deserts. We pitched camp to record the lifestyle of these last nomads on the eastern side of the African continent. These scenes, we hope, will show how the Saharan nomads lived before the onslaught of the sand. In Europe, a shepherd tends his sheep or goats. But in Africa, the concept of the shepherd must be applied to the man who tends his cattle or camels. This man is a Gare herdsman. The Gare are considered Africa's most handsome nomads. This watering hole is the only source of water within a radius of 200 miles. And especially during the dry season, it is an important goal for herdsmen and their charges. The animals are always allowed to drink first. When everyone has quenched his thirst, the women fill dried gourd containers called tunji. This reserve of water enables the nomad community to stay on the move. There is no respite in the herdsman's search for new pastures. Life is totally dependent on the well-being of the herd. A nomad's wealth is measured in head of cattle, and in these terms, some possess a fortune. And the coin of their realm is milk. Precious daily quarts of milk. For this reason, the herd is sacred to every nomad. And indeed, people tell of herdsmen being found dead of starvation in times of terrible drought, next to animals who are alive because their owners preferred to die of hunger rather than kill them. It may seem absurd that a nomad would never dream of killing his cows. But for that same nomad, the reality the industrialized world is creating around him is equally absurd. The modern transformation of his environment is potentially more dangerous for a nomad than any famine. His world, or the territory in which he has always been free to roam in search of new pastures, is increasingly more partitioned off by barriers that cannot be crossed. Barriers represented by frontiers between different countries. Countries whose concept is alien to the nomad's mentality, but which want to draft his finest sons into the armed forces. When these conscripts return among their own people, if they return at all, they bring strange souvenirs of their exile in the big city. We saw several showing postcards to their wives and mothers who had been waiting for them for up to 2 years. Obligations and restrictions of freedom are negative innovations. Borders, countries and cities threaten nomadic society in this remote corner of equatorial Africa. The central governments, often under military control, try to exploit the abundance of manpower in their countries and tend to include the nomads in this category. Conscription is a way for regimes to consolidate themselves by increasing the size of their armies. The nomads used to draw an imaginary ring within their environment and then travel around it from pasture to pasture, from well to well, periodically returning to the same places. This constantly repeated migration gave a rhythm to their lives that remained unchanged from prehistoric times to almost the present day. Man lived for the herd, and the herd was his means of survival. Today, this ring of life is being broken up. For how much longer will small migratory groups like this one be able to pack their tents and move on towards new pastures? There is no doubt the nomad's lifestyle will become extinct when these mobile shelters are replaced by other dwellings. In this case, these permanent homes being built by the government in an effort to stabilize the nomads. When stabilization becomes a fait accompli, it will mark the end of an era that lasted many thousands of years, but which will be soon forgotten. In another region, the demise of the nomads is dictated by causes that are only apparently different. We are in the Arabian Peninsula. The shanty town below stretches to the horizon. A sight that sums up why the nomads are a dying race, even in this country, where once they were more at home than anywhere else. For even here, the city grows and the desert is losing its inhabitants. We had to fly for hours, covering several hundred miles, in order to find a nomad group that is still faithful to the traditions of the original desert communities. But in spite of their appearance, these are not true nomads. The radio brings the sounds of the outside world into their tents. Sounds and voices of the city, like a mirage that lures an ever greater number of desert dwellers towards built-up areas. A few years ago, there was only the radio. Now, many of these groups have portable TV sets. A sign that times have not changed completely was the nomad's invitation to take tea with them, an age-old tradition.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Another tradition that survives is washing at times laid down in the Quran, not with water, which a nomad must not waste and may not even have, but with sand. Muhammad said, "You must pray at certain hours of the day, devoutly facing towards Mecca, the holy city." The nomad does not need a mosque in which to say his prayers, just as he doesn't need water to wash himself. In his daily holy observances that demand spiritual and physical cleanliness, the nomad is a very particular kind of Muslim. He creates and consecrates his own holy place from which to appeal to the one true merciful God he calls Allah. Allah Akbar, Allah the Great. The Arabian nomad needs only to mark the sand to indicate his holy praying area. And since the wind will quickly erase a superficial sign, he uses stones to indicate the limits of his sanctuary.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل أعوذ برب الناس.
The ways of the desert may change, but observance of religious customs lasts forever. Even if the nomads' desert campfires have died out almost everywhere to be replaced by the flares of oil fields, the appointment with God and the 5 daily prayer rituals continue with unabated fervor. Perhaps this is the only constant factor in an ever-changing world. We take to the air again. Our course takes us beyond the smoke and flames of Saudi Arabia's oil fields, one of the world's richest petroleum production areas. Our destination lies on the northern border of the Rub al-Khali, the desert of deserts. A herd of camels marks the way and leaves us close to a camp where we find the last true nomads in Saudi Arabia. These people are naturally suspicious and often hostile towards outsiders. That is why we have been led to them by a man who will vouch for us. He will make sure they understand we come as friends, and that we will leave a gift when we depart. Our guide must talk to the group's head man. The tent is made of goat's wool. The headman shows off his cartridge belt. A true Arabian nomad is always armed, as were his ancestors. Children wander in and out of an area of the tent that is off limits to us. The harem, strictly reserved for the women. The favorite wife's dowry. She has worn it since her wedding day. What can her youngest son expect from the future? What lies ahead of this child? No one can say. But it is logical to presume he will not be a nomad.